Okay, that problem solved. I will call the meeting to order at 4:04 p.m. And I will ask you to join us in our national anthem, please. Thank you. I'll now read our Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. I will now ask councillors if anyone has a pecuniary interest to declare in today's proceedings. And I don't see any, so could I get a motion then, please, to approve the agenda as circulated? Before we do that, I just have two comments. Item 11.13, which was a verbal update, an oral update actually intended to be on the audio and video conferencing. We don't have all of the information that I'd like for that, and it was my intention to prepare a written report. So I suggest that we may defer that. We are supposed to have the information we need for that report by the middle of this week. I haven't seen it yet, but so I'm going to suggest that we defer that until we can get you something in writing, and then we can have a conversation about it. The other thing I wanted to know to make note of is that I have another meeting to attend, and that will cause me to leave probably shortly after 6:30 if we're not finished, or before 6:30, between 6 and 6:30, because I have to get home to start it at 7 o'clock. So if we are still going, then I will declare a quick recess and ask Councillor Lamb to take over in the chair. But hopefully we don't have a long agenda. Hopefully we can get through it by then. So once again, could I ask for a mover and seconder for the motion, please, for the agenda? I see Councillor Woods moves, seconded by Councillor Lamb. Any discussion? is everyone in favor? Please indicate. Okay, thank you. That's carried. We do not have any presentations or delegations, nor any planning items or any public meetings. So the next item on our agenda is item 7, the consent agenda, which today consists of the council meeting, the minutes for the regular council meeting of December 13th, 2022, and the special council meeting of December 21st, 2022. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that council approve these minutes? All right, I have Councillor Woods moves and Councillor Bray seconds. Any discussion about the minutes?
I have a couple quick little questions if nobody else has anything.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Nash.
And part of it, I think I'm just a little new on the approval of the meeting minutes. So I guess my first,
I'm sorry, Councillor Nash, could I get you to just move a
better?
little closer?
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
I guess my first question is a simple question. Under accounts payable from last from the meeting minutes of December 13th. I know there was some questions from council members on it. I know some of them were going to be answered after council, but I noticed that it doesn't say anything about that there were some questions asked, not the details of the questions, but do we normally put questions, inquiries made from council, or we just normally leave it blank? I'm just not sure.
Madam Clerk.
Yeah, the protocol for minutes, it's fairly black and white. It's without note or comment. The odd time, if there's something that the clerk deems a particular need to explain, I will put a clerk's note, but you won't see that through the course of the minutes and under normal circumstances. And
then under item number 13, I think it's just a quick little typo. Right now it's under Mayor George Comrie. It says the recent secret shopper. I think it was Secret Santa. I think it's just maybe a wrong word, unless I picked up on it incorrectly. That was my one question. And then my second question is under councillor items under Scott Nash. I know I had inquired about being provided with the bylaw for the Word document protocol and not being able to give it out, and I'd asked if that could come back to us in an email or a staff report, but I don't notice it being mentioned there, and I just wonder if that could be updated to show that I've asked for something.
If I could back up to item 13 under councillor items. Yes, it was a secret shopping workshop, not Secret Santa. So that's correct. From the rec committee, and there is no bylaw. We don't pass bylaws for those types of protocols.
Okay. I just wanted to update the minutes to say that I'd inquired on it because I was told that it's considered protected information. So I would like it to be noted that I'd asked for an update on where that comes from, if I could. And the final question I have is simply under questions from the public. Again, I know we're not going to name names, but do we ever mention the items that were asked under questions from the public? Example, Belvedere Heights, when I know somebody asked about it, or do we just leave it questions from the public and leave it blank?
We leave it blank. We note that there were questions from that there is a spot for questions from the public, unless there's specific council direction, then it's left blank.
Okay, then thank you. Would it be possible to update the question that I asked that wasn't shown here?
I will send an email to all of council to address that item.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else about minutes? With these minutes? Okay, I will ask for a show of hands to approve them then, please. As circulated. Okay, thank you. And matters arising from the consent agenda, well, we basically already talked about them. Item 8 then is accounts payable. You have a list in front of you. Could I get a mover and seconder that these that the council receives the accounts payable listing for information, please? So Councillor Lamb moves, Councillor Wood seconds. Is there any discussion? Questions or comments about these? No? Okay.
Well, I'll have a question. I just wanted to make sure nobody else had any questions first.
Well, please go ahead.
All right. I guess it's a similar question I had to the last meeting. I've flagged about 7 expenses here. They're all to do with legal matters. I'll go through the invoice or the payment numbers. It was payment number 963 on page 33. Payment number 969 on page 34. Payment number 993 on page 39. Payment number 996 on page 40. Payment number 1015 on page 43. Payment 1033 on page 46. Payment 1035 on page 47. And payment 36,840 on page 30. And I know those add up to about $21,000. And again, I would request, and I know if we can't do it in an open session, if council might be provided in a closed session, the accounts that those are payable to, not if it was an HR matter, a legal matter, but just what files they relate to. And I believe in my follow-up that I've done with the Integrity Commissioner, we are able to get those. So I just ask if maybe on the next closed session, if we might be able to be provided with those, because I know we're still waiting for the last one from the last meeting, but I'd say $21,000 in a month. It would be nice to know what accounts those are related to in regards to legal matters.
By me, Mr. Mayor, what was the last one?
36840. Oh, sorry, and I missed one. 977 also, Michelle, on page 37.
I'm going to suggest that, you know, for questions like this, since we're not in a position in a public meeting to have you know, to get into any of the details of what these things are about. I'm going to ask that if councillors have questions about these, please take them directly to the CAO and get your explanation. I don't see anything to be accomplished by raising it in this meeting, only to have her send something back to council. And this can be done offline. We don't need to take up time in the council meeting.
Yeah, I think I'm just asking if they could just be presented to us in a closed session, that's all. And then everybody will have the answer to them. All council will have the answer. That's all they.
Well, okay, but I think that's that's a subject for closed session that we can have a discussion, but, okay. But all right, but not, let's, if you don't mind, let's not take up time in the public meeting to go through those. I mean, if it's something else of a general nature that you're asking about that might be of interest to the public, that's one thing. But these ones, we can't get into the details regardless. Anyway, are there any other questions or comments about payables? All right, can I ask for a show of hands and to approve, to receive them, receive the information. Sorry, did you have a question, Councillor Woods?
Misplaced where I put it. Sorry. Was there a payable in here for Greenwood? I was just curious about that, if it was all part of the one planning thing or.
It's in there somewhere, I saw.
I'm sure it is. I'll do a double check on that and let you know.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Okay, show of hands, please, and all in favor. All right, thank you. We have received the information. That brings us then to staff reports. And the first one is accessibility initiatives undertaken for the 2022 municipal election. I get a motion that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives this report, staff report in Min-2023-01, entitled Accessibility Initiatives Undertaken for the 2022 municipal election for information. Who would like to move that? Councillor Lamb moves, seconded by Councillor Bray. Do you wish to comment on this, Madam CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's really here for information. It's required to be done under the Elections Act and within a certain period of time of the election. So we've met that timeline, and it's just simply an understanding of how the municipality met their AODA obligations for the election. Thank you.
Are there any questions for our CAO about this report? Okay, can we I agree that we've received it then? Thank you. All right. The next one is a request for proposal for work on the asset management plan. And I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives report Public Works 2023-01, request for proposal 2022-13, municipal building review for asset management purposes for information. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby awards the municipal building review project to Steenhoff Building Services in the amount of $29,750 plus HST. Mover and seconder. Councillor Bray moves. And Councillor Wood seconds. So discussion on this. You did second, right? Yeah, okay, thank you. Questions on this report, or is there were we getting an introduction from from our manager of public works? David, thank you very much. Please introduce the report.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. This report is just another piece of the puzzle in our asset management plan that we're building. This updates our previous plan that was done in 2011 for building report. The recommendation is from the same consultant, which is they're located in Orillia, and they also have a satellite office in Port Carlin. They are familiar with our buildings, and this will be an in-depth review for maintenance, repair, replacement, forward-looking for 20 years. They'll also cover accessibility and the requirements for us to be compliant moving forward. So it will be another tool in our belts for future planning for asset management. The price did come in, quotes did come in under budget. So that's a positive. Steenhoff is a multidisciplinary consulting firm, so they have different engineers for to cover different portions of the building envelope and reviews. So they were very competitive in their proposal, and they're the recommended consultant going forward. Does anyone have any questions?
Go ahead, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, I'll be a little careful here.
Can you speak into your
Yeah,
mic, please,
sorry.
Councillor Lamb?
Just have to be a little careful. Steinhoff Engineering has some history with the municipality that probably only I know about, because I don't think any of the rest of you were on council at the time. But at the time of when the municipal office was full of mold and we had to move all the employees into a trailer up at the Rhodes Garage, Steinhoff was involved in writing a spec for the building to replace the building and taking that spec out then to bid. That bid came in at $1.9 million for the building. And after wrangling for some weeks or months, I wasn't happy and kept bringing stuff up. Long story short, at the end of it, we literally did not go with them, and we went to a design build type of building, same size, everything was just about the same, and it came in at under $1 million. I think it was $972,000. So I remember at that time also, there was some comment about what it would take to make the Dundome handicap accessible. And Steinhoff had, and again, you could look back in the records, but you know, it was some figure like $2 or $3 million. And it was so outlandishly out of whack. And that I remember a friend of mine who's in the municipality, who's in a wheelchair and is disabled, said this is not right or proper or whatever. So with that precautionary note, and again, I'm sure they're a good firm and a multidisciplined firm and that sort of thing. But in terms of my background with them, from being on council, it wasn't a real good experience. Now, again, I don't say that so that we throw them out and take someone else. I just want you to be aware that that is the history that I know of them. And if our dear departed mayor or other people who were on the council at that time would know exactly what I was speaking about. I don't think the mayor, I don't think you were on at that time. But anyway, I just say that for information, and thank you. We don't need to debate it, I guess, but you need to be aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Are there other comments or questions? Councillor Nash.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I think, David, the first one or two might be for yourself. I noticed when I was reading through here, it says that it's for asset management plan for all municipal infrastructure. I know we've already done the roads, bridges, culverts, water, wastewater, and stormwater, and back in 2021. When I was going through the list on attachment A, through all the buildings and such, I didn't see the LCBO building on there that I know we own. So I don't know, is that grouped with another building here? That would be one question. And then subsequent to that, on other buildings, the salt dome, I'll call it, at the works yard, is that part of public works building? And if we're looking at infrastructure, I was just wondering about the playground down by the water, and a couple docks that are down at Whitestone Lake here, and the dock that we've installed at Gooseneck. Should these or could these be included in here? I know this says buildings, and a couple of the things I said are not buildings, but just wondering when those assets, if they're not covered off, might be. And the big question was the LCBO, I would assume, is a building. And I was just wondering if it is included here or not.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do not own the LCBO building. We own the land, they
Oh,
own the
okay.
building.
Yeah,
Ah.
it's their building.
Beautiful, perfect. And do we have to worry about like the playgrounds or the docks or anything like that in this report and have those looked at, or can that be under, it looks like there's another report here that might have to come due before July 2024. Would those be picked up at that time?
I think that's something that Dave will look into, and he can probably speak to this, to the Sand Dome. That's a specialty inspection firm that does that. And there was a recent inspection in the last 3 years. That's probably good for the next 5 years. And that will be also incorporated into the asset management plan.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. And then the final question is simply, I noticed that we have not recommended the low bidder, who was Northwind Energy, and was recommended the Steinhoff. And I know it said here that the proponent did not have the local municipal experience or the multidisciplinary professional team. And I know just when it comes to awards like this, I just want to make sure, and I believe it's already stated here that we're sure that we have to we've disqualified Northwind's Energy from the bid, I'm assuming, because they were not qualified. Is that what we've done?
Can you answer that?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. This was a request for a proposal and not a tender. So people, it's a different people are not disqualified or qualified. They propose what they can offer for services for the municipality. And then these are weighted responses. And these include background for experience, talented staff, and familiarity, obviously, with the municipality and local accessibility to our buildings as well. It just, Northwinds didn't present as strong as some of the others did. So price is absolutely a concern, but it's not the top concern. So being in Kenora and not having the background or experience with other municipalities such as ours did weigh in on the proposal. Steinhoff has done other reviews, similar reviews with neighboring municipalities. They've also worked with us as well. It's someone that staff will have to work with, and working with someone who's worked with other municipalities in the area with a positive review and being accessible is important. And Kenora was a concern, and they didn't stack up with experience. So that was considered. It's not a straight tender. Can you provide this product at this specification at this time for what amount of money? It was more of a service that they could provide the municipality.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for your answer, David. That really helps. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Are there other questions or comments on this? Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you. For you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to circle back a little bit on, because I know we did the study on roads and that in last year. What about things like the playground? We got the playground here. We've got lots of equipment. We've got, you know, the commons up in Maple Island. We've got a dock down here that's supposed to be a 100-year dock or something that we spent $100 and some odd thousand on. We have other docks here. We have, who owns the one at Wawashkesh? Do we own that, or they? I think the conservation.
They do.
They own that,
Yes.
right? You know, I'm thinking other assets. I think we own a dam on Wawashkesh. And so there's these little dribs and drabs of other things. And I guess my question would be, if those aren't looked at under this study, what study are they looked under? Like, when would we address those things? Because that to me would then complete everything we have, right? Is that a fair question? I just don't know where they fall in. There may be other assets that I'm missing that we have, right?
think I'll start with the question about the dam. That's a very specialty inspection, and we're aware that that needs to be inspected and become part of the asset management plan. The other piece is the swing sets and the playground and the docks. That's something Dave and I will look into. But you're right, they're part of the assets of the municipality and should have an inspection and a maintenance plan associated with them. So we'll find out where they fit. This RFP was specific to structural and buildings, but you're right, there's a few bits and pieces that are left over that will become part of the asset management plan in 2024.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this? All right, can I put the question to you then to award the contract? And I guess normally we would do a recorded vote for awarding a contract.
Thank you, Councillor Bure.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
No.
Councillor Nash.
Yes.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. That brings us then to the third item, which is a request for proposal. Well, it's actually a contract to provide an excavator as a result of a request for proposal. Could I get a mover and seconder, please, that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby receives report Public Works 2023-02, the request for proposal 2022-14 for an excavator, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve a 2023 pre-budget purchase and award RFP 2022-14 in the amount of $229,300 plus HST to Bob Mark New Holland Sales Limited. We'll move that.
I'll move that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Nash moves, seconded by Councillor Woods. Okay, thank you. Once again, we'll ask our Manager of Public Works, David, to kick this off, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. This report is the next step in a conversation that's been going on for some time now. Back in September 20th, the memo was presented to council, which did give background information on a rental versus purchase of that. And from that meeting, council did direct staff to go ahead and proceed with an RFP for the purchase of an excavator. These are the results of that. We had a tremendous response, one of the best responses I've seen at the municipality to an RFP. So this was great information. Maybe it was time of year or just it was sent out to a lot of people, but there was a great response for competitive results. So we did see a variety of information come in. We had used, non-current, and current machines that were proposed. Looking at those, the municipality did have some criteria in it. We're looking for a machine that was roughly 14 ton with a low tail swing, low clearance tail swing, so they could operate as a mobile operation in one lane and continue different operations that we do, ditching and other road work. That being said, we're also looking for about 100 horsepower as well. So we did have a rental machine a couple years back that it struggled with lifting things, different boulders and what it struggled lifting itself. So that was a concern for us. We needed something that if we're going to be buying into or investing into for a longer period of time, we need something that would in fact work for us. So these results did come forward. They were competitive. The previous memo showed a projected rate of cost that would amount to over 5 years for paying it off at just under 300,000. This came in just below that, so it's within the projected rates. The proposed machine is the Hyundai HX 145, roughly 14 tons. It will fit on our float, and it does have the power. It has a Cummins motor, which is a reliable motor. I've dealt with Bob Mark in the past. They have overnight parts delivered from their facilities in the States. They also have parts in stock in Lindsay and Sunderland as well. The machine that I was involved in before was a 14-ton as well rubber tire machine. It had very, very few problems. It was a very reliable machine with low maintenance, a lot of power, and a lot of creature comforts and safety features on it. So this machine does appear to meet what requirements we're looking for. It also does come with a warranty. Otherwise, last year we had that Doosan DX 140 on rent from Preston's. They also offered us that machine used for about 20,000 less than this machine. It being coming up to 2 years old now with about 950 hours on it. That machine was a good machine. It worked very well for us, did a lot of work for us, completed a lot of projects for us. So that's where we're at. Basically, we're looking at, we spent in last year's budget, it looks like we spent roughly $46,000. And that's about what the payments would be, roughly the same amount as our operating budget we pay for rent. Now, that operating budget did actually include some capital projects. It did work on some capital projects. So that would have to be considered as well. This would be a 6-year financing for the machine, should we look at purchasing. Thank you. Is there any questions?
Questions? Okay, Councillor Nash, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. David, I have several questions for it. And just before I guess I'll start. I know back in September in your report, or the staff report, it was about 46,000 that was spent in rental. And I noticed in the current staff report here that the yearly payments over 6 years will also total about 46,000. So almost a wash from purchasing to renting. And I know back in the September report to this, we'd have to add, excuse me, some operating maintenance costs, and you'd given a chart, and I think you'd mentioned over 20 years, and the rates average from 5,000 a year to about 20,000. So over the 15 years, that would be an average of about $12,500. So when I look at this on firsthand, it would tell me that renting a machine for the first 6 years would actually be cheaper than purchasing a machine. And then in the years, maybe 7, 8, and 9, however long we keep it, that's where we might see the cost savings down the road. And I know it talked about possibly life expectancy of about $15,000 on a machine, sorry, 15 years. But I know that the backhoe we had, I think, lasted 8 to 9 years and had to be turned in because of so much work that needed to be done to it. As part of the tender, and this was one of my main questions, before I go on much further, I'll see if you can answer this part. In the tender, it had noted several attachments that would be preferred equipment. One of them was a wrist to twist for ditching, a thumb, and a general bucket. Do you know if the Hyundai, or out of the ones that we had 10 bids here, did they all provide pricing that included the wrist to twist ditching bucket, or those in addition? I'm just wondering because I don't see them listed anywhere in the analysis. So if you can answer that question, then I have 2 more subsequent to that, similar to that though.
Thank you for breaking that up for me. I appreciate that. Helps me organize. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So all the machines did come in with those requirements. They all generally came in with the accessories that we asked for. I don't think we saw any that didn't. I don't believe not one didn't, so they all did. The additional costs were offered to a lube, the auto grease system. That was in addition to these costs. So everybody had that in addition to their prices, as well as options on warranty. You could buy extended warranties and whatnot. The other question was, I believe, was the life expectancy. Looking at the excavator, we put on roughly 500 hours, 400 some hours over 6 months. So that being said, we're looking at over 15 years, 7,500 hours. My personal machine I have is a 2008. I have a Kubota myself with 7,000 hours. It's in great shape, Everything's tight on it. But I don't work it in sand and salt like the backhoe. The backhoe loads all our machines. It's in the salt, it's in the sand. It's quite abrasive. It's very hard. It's hard on our trucks. It's hard on our equipment. The excavators don't see that. So you don't quite have those. And that's one. And the other one is tires and transmissions. It gets floated around, so it doesn't quite see the maintenance costs that the rubber tire does. The rubber tire gets used more. It gets run to the landfills. We float it a lot, but it does move around quite a bit and does a lot of work. It packs compactors, it moves garbage, it goes quick jobs that we can do. Bigger projects, it just doesn't, it doesn't stack up. It's like a Swiss Army knife. If you want to use a Swiss Army knife to clean a moose, it'll do the job, but it's probably not your first choice for a knife. But it'll do it. So when you think of a backhoe, it will do a lot of jobs, but it's not the right tool for the job. So a lot of other municipalities run the 14-ton excavators in our area, and they see a lot of work completed by them. This is what, from my experience, I would recommend. I've been in the roads for 20, 25 years, building highways, roads, bridges for MTO, and that's all I've ever done. All I've done. I took my engineering, that's all I've done. So, and I've owned equipment myself. I've run equipment. I've been around a lot of it. This is my recommendation to go ahead with this. The savings, you do see the savings in your 7, and going forward, you would see that. The maintenance is not drastic in these. You get, they're down the road around 10,000 hours and abusive work. We don't get into a lot of abusive heavy rock work. We don't get in those conditions. It's a pretty easy job for an excavator in a municipality. We do a lot of ditching, a lot of excavation from road work, a lot of soft work, not a lot of heavy rock work, not in dusty conditions, and not in around winter sand or salt. So they live a pretty good life in a municipality, an excavator does.
David, thank you very much for that answer. And then just moving on to my second part to my comments here. For a steel track excavator, again, just when I look at it, and I think you'd hit a key word that I had written down here that I wanted to talk to. I think you said in one of your previous locations, you'd had a 14-ton or similar rubber tire.
Yes.
Or wheeled excavator, not
Yes.
rubber tired backhoe, but wheeled excavator. And when I look at this excavator, like the steel track one here, the 14-ton, and I've done quite a bit of work with excavators on roads and parks and stuff in my life as well. And I can't help but think, if we might think as a municipality, a wheeled excavator that you could drive along roads such as the Bunny Trail or other slurried roads to do ditching instead of running it over the asphalt. You'd still be able to do work in the landfill, do culverts, do all the things that you could with a steel track, but also use it along the roads to do ditching, but also use the attachments. You could get the chipping attachment, I'll call it, the brushing attachment to drive along the roads that might save a contract award for brushing along the edges of the roads and use the a wheeled excavator. And just when I look at this and think about a wheeled excavator, I myself would think that maybe it might be in our best interest to have staff look into the cost comparison between a 14-ton steel track excavator and a 14 or so ton wheeled excavator that I think would be just as versatile, but even more versatile. And knowing that the cost of renting versus purchasing, even though one's for 7 months for the rental and there's no real cost savings, I just can't see supporting a upwards of, $300,000 purchase when I don't think it can do some of the jobs that maybe a wheeled excavator can, and we could rent a machine for almost the same price, at least for the first 6 years. So I guess my question out of all of that is, have you put in any thought to a wheeled excavator? And would that be something that you would see being more beneficial than a tracked excavator if there was funding available for a wheeled excavator?
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. That is an excellent question. Excellent question. I did ask that question of myself. I asked that question of each one of the people I work with. And then I proposed that question again a couple weeks later to everybody to plead their case. And the stumbling block is this: we use the excavator to move garbage at the landfill. And we do that fairly often. We have to do cover and move stuff around and shape it. That's a big part of the job. That's part of the operating costs that pay for the rentals. It is. It's a big piece of the puzzle. The rubber tire cannot do that. It'll get buried in the garbage. Can't do that. So the rubber tire is good on surface treatment, and I love rubber tires. Absolutely love. The last one we had a 360 Vista twist on it, ditch and bucket, had the jawbone, go cut a tree, put it through a culvert, had the brushing head, the AMI, or not the AMI, the AME brushing head out of Quebec, excellent brushing head to do that. Those require man hours, so you need more staffing, but you can do it. Absolutely. I've done it in the winter, done it in the summer, run the roads, spent thousands of hours doing that. I've done it. Wrote tenders for them, other municipality copied them, been all there. Run them a lot. We don't have enough surface treatment to justify putting that much money into a rubber tire. Being that and ignoring the landfills, because then I'd have to rent a machine we would have to rent that machine for the landfill. So to add that cost in addition to, and we have to do that, a few times a year. So we have to add that to that. It would make sense to rent machines. We have a newer float that would move this machine around. It is a pain to float it around. It is, but the benefits of using it for the landfill outweigh that. They do. Every single person that works in public works agrees that the benefit of the landfill to move the material around outweighs the rubber tire on the road, because absolutely sending it down the road is great. You can put chains on it, run down the road in the winter and brush. Beautiful. In those sunny days in February, you can blow stuff apart and it's great. It does a lot of things, but it doesn't do landfills. So that's the problem. That's the biggest hurdle is landfills, and it's a big part of the job. So that's, I hope that answers your question.
Thanks a lot for answering that. And how many times a year, just estimate, would we need to move the garbage around? Is it once a month that we do it, like 12 times a year or half a dozen times a year? Just a guesstimate how many times.
It should be monthly, like you put the cover on and move it around. Sometimes we get into it a little bit more, trying to maximize the amount of a footprint we can reserve. So we try and build up and move it in a geographical way, and we keep our stormwater off. We don't want the stormwater to go into the garbage and then leak out as contamination. So we have to manage how the stormwater moves. So that all takes a bit of work and finesse, and the garbage does sink with weight on it. So then you have to, if you want to manage your volume, you got to work on your shape and your size and surcharge type of thing. So those are big things. It's nice to have access to a machine that, like when we had a rental, we could send it up as required, especially if they, some of our staff said, you know, you need to come, we need this done now. We can make it happen that day. I mean, it depends on volume. When you get more people in, it's a problem. Sometimes you're busier than others, but every month is probably good. We have to do something every month. Maybe it's a backhoe. Maybe it's not an excavator every month, but at some point you have to do bigger jobs that require days at a time in the garbage at the landfill.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Dave, for all those answers. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, just quickly, David. I don't know much about this, but the Hyundai is $229,000. Everything else is up around 300,000 or more. Why is it so cheap? And it's got the most horsepower, and it's got, I mean, when I look at it, like it's not 20,000 less, it's whatever, 80, $90,000 less. There's got to be a reason for that. What is it?
I wish I could share that. The John Deere and Cat are premium machines. They're premium machines. They are. Liebherr, German machine. It's an excellent machine as well. The Hyundai, they're a very big mining, but they run a lot of bigger mining equipment. I've been around them, run them, no problems with them.
I guess my concern is, you know, you kind of get what you pay for, right? You know, and I don't know enough about this. Are we getting something that you know? I guess just because it's the low bid, I mean, are we better to be having a John Deere, a Cat, or something else rather than this machine?
I would argue that this is the best motor out of all of them. It's a 6.7 Cummins, which you get in the Ram trucks, and they're in all kinds of. They're an excellent motor. Excellent motor. Been around a lot of years. Very common for parts for. It's a good motor.
Okay,
I've been around.
You know a lot more about it than I do. So the other thing that hits me is that through the years, we've always sort of tried to balance our debt. And here's we're taking more debt on. And pray tell, I think Mr. Can's on the line, so he would remind us of that. But so we used to every 3 years buy a piece of equipment. We'd finance it for 3 years and then buy another piece and another piece. And so we weren't, you know, going into debt. Is there too much? Is there any equipment this year that's coming off the docket that we won't be paying because now it's paid off? Or in other words, we would we just swap out our debt. Is there a piece of equipment in that situation or not? And I realize our treasurer isn't here, so maybe that's a difficult question to answer, but I'd feel more comfortable if you said, yeah, the XYZ truck we're no longer paying 50 grand on that this year. That would make me feel a little more comfortable. I also finally, my final comment is that I share this idea of, you know, the payback comes 6 to 9 years from now, that sort of thing. And you know, it's a long time out. And, but before, you know, the first 6 or 7 years, it's a wash, quite frankly. So, you know, that kind of concerns me a bit. And my final comment would be, does McKellar have an excavator? Does Magnetawan have an excavator? What is the practice in small communities like ours? That's a lot of mouthful, but maybe you can address some of those things. Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. The answer about what's coming off the ledger for payments, I would have to I'd have to defer to our treasurer on that. I apologize, I don't have that information in front of me. And I would have to ask as well. The other question, I believe, was what are other municipalities doing? Magnetawan rents, like we did, an excavator. McDougall owns John Deere. Ryerson owns a large rubber tire.
McKellar?
McKellar, they've got a small fleet of backhoes, and they're excellent, but they've got a few backhoes. So there's a wave of other municipalities that don't have landfills. Like when you get over towards Burkes Falls, Ryerson doesn't have a landfill. Armor's, so if Armor doesn't, they've got a special compaction machine just for the landfill, which is a few $100,000 on its own. So they run a rubber tire as well and a backhoe. Perry runs a rubber tire and a backhoe. Strong runs a rubber tire and a backhoe. The ones that don't have landfills, they run the rubber tire. Now Perry's got both a track and a rubber tire. So the track does the culverts and the dig outs. The rubber tire does a lot of brushing, and they don't do ditching with it. It doesn't have the right, it's got a wrist to twist on it, and it doesn't have the right bucket, but ours is the one we tendered is for ditching. So
For 6 or 8 years out, don't forget that we could possibly be in the situation that York landfill could be something different than that, right? We won't be doing that. And then we'll that's when the payback comes, right? So anyway, okay, that's all the questions I have.
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, one other thing, just to note, the cost of equipment is going up quicker than it used to. So new equipment is. The cost of rentals will again reflect that. Just to note, so these rental costs will go up for higher than what I projected, and the purchasing to push this down the road, the prices will climb quicker than they have. So our costs will increase more if we don't do this purchase. They will increase more. Just the way things are going with the market.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments about this? All right, then, are you ready for the question to award this contract?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Bray.
Yes.
Councillor Lamb.
Yes.
Councillor Nash.
No.
Councillor Woods.
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion is carried.
All right, thank you. That brings us to our business matters, of which there are a number. 11.1, election statistics provided by the company that automated the election, I guess. Could I get a mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the 2022 municipal election statistics?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Woods. Any discussion? Any comments from our CAO? No. Yeah.
No comment, just good information, a lot of statistical data there.
Okay, then, are we agreeable to receive it then? I take it everybody's
Good report.
willing to do that. All right. Quite a bit of detail there. Are you?
I guess-
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, through you, sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of good statistics in there. Nothing too terribly surprising, but overall, I guess a question to our CAO, the election went fine in your opinion. I don't remember any glaring anything happening other than people voted and here we sit, right? So is that a true statement?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that most people don't see, whether you're a candidate or an elector. And that went off just fine. We had spent a lot of time preparing policies and protocols, and we worked well with IntelliVote. And I would say that all of the West Parry Sound municipality used IntelliVote, and nobody had any issues. Now, we are the only municipality that still does mail-in ballots. All the other municipalities in West Parry Sound just do telephone and internet voting. And of course, the mail-in ballot adds effort and cost to the election, but it's not unmanageable. So to your question, no, I would say that things went well.
Okay, thank you. 11.2 is the annual report from our fire and rescue department, from our fire chief. Can I get a mover and seconder that council receive the annual fire and rescue department report for 2022 for information? Okay, Councillor Nash is moving and the seconder is Councillor Woods. Thank you. All right, is there any discussion about this report? All right, all those in favor of receiving it? Okay, thank you. That's done. 11.3 is a notice of motion from Councillor Lamb that the Council of Municipality of Whitestone is hereby request staff to investigate the possibility of providing health benefits and insurance coverage to members of council. So I'm assuming that you're going to move that motion, Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, I'll move it, yeah, for discussion and
All right. Is there a seconder? All right, Councillor Woods. Thank you. Do you want to introduce your motion,
yeah,
Councillor Lamb?
yeah, I don't know, and I'm asking staff to look at what other municipalities do with respect to benefits and insurance, life insurance. I remember when our Mayor Armstrong passed away. At first, I thought there was no payment to his family at all, but apparently there was a small, very small, I think it was $5,000 insurance, you know, type situation. So I just think that in the event that, for instance, a councillor happens to pass away during their term, I think we should be providing, or at least looking at some form of term insurance. I don't know what the amount is, but quite frankly, I guess they probably would quote something based per thousand or whatever, but I'd like for us to investigate whether that's normal in other municipalities, and B, what the cost would be for that. Secondly, and this would be more for someone like Councillor Woods, quite frankly, who has a small family or kids in a family. I wonder whether it's possible and at what cost to have someone like him enrolled in the group benefit plan that the employees have, and what that cost would be. I think once you reach 65, you're not eligible for any of these things, so I don't think it would apply to and I see if I had nothing, so it wouldn't apply to the majority's council. Let's just say that. So anyway, just and again, I want it to be a public process. So I'd like us to come back and open and we would discuss it and decide, so. That's my introduction. I think it's time we do it, and again, it sort of bothered me at the time that Chris passed away in his first term, and anyway, I think enough said. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other comments or questions about this one? All right, oh, sorry. I see.
No, I was just looking down there to see if they had any questions or comments. I think it would be overall, I think it would be a good idea for staff to look into it and get back to us on what other municipalities in the area might do and how they do it and what they do. I think that'd be great.
Okay, thanks. Are we all in favor then? Is that? Okay. That's carried. 11.4 is another notice of motion from this time from Councillor Nash. I'll read the motion that at the request of Councillor Nash, the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone discuss and consider protocols for members of council attendance at meetings, staff, various kinds of meetings, excluding council meetings, that council consider having staff manage an electronic calendar for members of council for meetings, events, committees, boards, formal events in which a member will be attending as a representative of council, again, excluding council meetings. So I'm assuming that you're moving that, Councillor Nash?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Is there a seconder for it? Councillor Wood seconds. All right, it's open for discussion now. Do you want to introduce it?
Yeah, sure.
Councillor Nash?
I had a whole bunch of notes written for the time of our last council meeting here, but I think I'm just going to be more broad in what I say here. The goal would be, I think, is after we have some discussion to maybe let staff look at possibly coming up with some protocols or procedures that might be done, and then bringing that back to a future council for further discussion. But really what I was, sorry about that. What I was thinking about when I brought this up is wanting to some form of procedures or protocols for when members of council, be it a council or be it a councillor, the mayor, doesn't matter who it is on council, but if we're going to be attending a meeting, and I'm not talking about a council meeting, but be it a planning meeting or you know, a meeting with staff and our consultants, that if a member of council is going to attend that meeting, that we should decide as council if a member of council should be attending that and picking a delegate to attend that on our behalf if need be, instead of, be it myself or it could be anybody inserting themselves and saying, I want to attend that meeting. And I think having a set of protocols or procedures that would lay out when a member of council could attend a meeting would help us all. And I was talking about, like, some examples would be a staff, like just staff meeting, staff/client meeting, a staff and ratepayer meeting, or a staff and consultants and other agency meetings. And if those are going to take place again, that we have something, some type of protocol that would not make it that councillors or the mayor can just attend a meeting without being delegated by council to attend, of course, with the exception of our regular council meetings. And if a member of the public had arranged a meeting, or a ratepayer had arranged a meeting, and they said, I'd like Councillor Bray to attend that meeting, then of course Councillor Bray would be able to attend that meeting and wouldn't need council approval. So if you have somebody from the public that's arranging a meeting and wants a certain member of council to attend, great, they can attend. But if a member of the public hasn't requested for a specific member, I think we should in some form have some protocols as to who and how and when they're delegated. And then when I was thinking of it, I took that a little bit further and said, if, you know, we have a protocol for that, we could have some form of a digital calendar. And in that digital calendar, if I was going to be attending an event, I could let staff know I was going to be attending that event. And then it would show on a calendar that Councillor Nash will be attending, you know, I'll say Remembrance Day ceremony to put a wreath up, whatever it might be. So that other councillors would know when another councillor is attending a meeting. But I just wanted to have some discussion over what people might think of that. And possibly, again, once we've had a discussion, just simply have staff go back and maybe come up with some simple procedures or protocols, and then bring it back to us for further discussion. And at that time, we may choose to vote on it or not vote on it. But I kind of was hoping that out of today would simply get to the point of staff being able to take it back and work on some type of a report for us on it.
So just if I can understand, are you asking, I mean, the motion is that the council consider and discuss, but are you asking staff to do something first?
Well, the way I'd tried to write actually a motion subsequent to this, but I'm not even going to read it because I think it's irrelevant for what I'd said. But when I'd said Whitestone discuss and consider protocols, I don't think it's up to us right now to come up with all those protocols. I'm thinking of it more. We have a discussion today, and then staff take it back and come up with some protocols or, you know,
okay.
like just staff come up with a report on what they might recommend for those protocols. And then it be brought back to council for us to look at further. I don't think we'd ever get through something like that and sitting here right now. So it was more bring it to the table, have staff take it back, bring it back forward, and then we have a more meaningful discussion on it.
Okay, thank you. Are there other comments from anybody? Any other councillors?
I'll keep going. Not sure exactly what I'm going to say. So, you know, I think this works into even eventually us talking about, you know, having a computer, right, and having electronic stuff, right. And I think we have to have that discussion as to whether we cut down trees and have all this paper, or whether we have a computer in front of us that does all that for us, right. So. But I can see the need for some sort of electronic calendar that would say, you know, there's a library board meeting on Tuesday afternoon at 2 o'clock. There's a cemetery board meeting. There's a, you know, those sorts of things, right? And so that we could just hit a button and see everything that's kind of going on, I guess. In terms of protocols of who goes to what meetings, I mean, I'm asked the odd time, you know, for instance, during the election, I was asked to go to 2 or 3 roads associations meetings, right? And they called me and invited me to go, and I said, I'll show up. You know, personally, I don't mind putting that in an electronic calendar and saying, you know, Saturday afternoon, I'm going to be there. I don't want that to mean because I've been invited that everybody else is invited, right? Because that's not my purview to do. They invited me, and so I think it's got to be a little careful, right? So I think if at any time anyone in the community asks for myself or the mayor or anyone else to attend a meeting, and they're going to go, then go. You know, and I don't see it as necessarily a bad thing to say I'm going to meet that person. I don't think you're meeting with an individual taxpayer on some issue that has to be put into a calendar, right? So I think we need something. I'm just not sure in my mind exactly what we need. So those are, I guess, my comments. Thank you.
You have a comment, Councillor Woods?
Yeah, personally, oh, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think the idea of an electronic calendar would be advantageous. Me learning how to use it would be even more advantageous for somebody helping me out with something like that, because I'm not good with technology, but I think it would be a good idea if I was, invited, say, out to Ardbeg to the community club for an event, posted on the calendar somewhere. And that way, if 2 or 3 other councillors were going to show up to an event, and nobody knew that anybody was showing up, would we not be found violating if we all showed up at technically a meeting, right? We'd have quorum if we all went.
Well, yeah. As far as having a calendar is concerned of events that are going on, including the meetings that we have of committees and that sort of thing, I think that's a great idea that we have talked about before, and I'd like to see that available. So, like a lot of the meetings that we actually have, some of the committee meetings, in fact, my understanding is that they are open to the public. Like, for example, the Recreation Committee or the Environment Committee, Environmental Stewardship Committee, or whatever, that if somebody says, I want to come and either raise an issue with you, or they would have to go through the chair, I think, to get an invitation. But I think there's some value in having those, and that's certainly something that we can ask staff to look at doing. In fact, it is. I'll let the CAO correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the facilities to do it are part of our website system. It's just that we don't have somebody to be. We don't have staff resources to sort of keep it populated, and sometimes, in fairness to staff, they don't know when meetings are, because they get changed around or things like that. But anyway, I think that part is easy, and I'll stop and then we'll come back to the other part.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a few comments. This is something that I've talked to staff about since the whole idea came up about a calendar. And I think it's quite doable. We would certainly need help in populating this information, and we would need that from members of council. And interestingly enough, one of the things we need to do a bit better on, and it's written into our transparency policy, is that notice of meetings of all of our committees of council should be on the website, and we've committed to do that a little bit better, but it can also be in a calendar. And whether it's a calendar that it's something you have to think about. Is it a calendar that's going to be accessible to the public, or simply a calendar for members of council? And we can use Google Drive for that. That's simple enough. It's just a click and we can show you how to do that. And as well as you, Councillor Woods, you'll get it quite easily. And then if council does end up with laptops, it would always be there for you. So that's actually a good idea. But as I said, we would need help. We don't always know when you're doing certain things. We know the regular meetings, but beyond that, it would be up to you to help us populate that. And that will be done by our front desk person, who's quite capable of that and is getting very familiar with the website. So that's the easy part. So I don't have a problem with that. And that's something we can look at getting started over the next few weeks and build a calendar that's easy to read.
Sorry, Councillor Bray, go ahead.
Yes, I like the idea of an electronic calendar. And I also like the idea of us really thinking about the amount of paper we produce and the use of laptops. I think it's important. I think we have Wi-Fi here, so it's not like it can't be, we wouldn't be able to get on here, but I see so many other places doing that. and it being so much easier on the paper part of it. And I would say that we should really think about that.
That's coming. I'll just make, and I'm conscious of the time here, and I don't want to get too far afield, but I think there's a long list in this first part of this motion about various kinds of meetings that people might have. Unless council creates a committee or a task force or a working group of some kind to do something, it is not normal for councilors to attend staff meetings or meetings with consultants. I don't attend staff meetings. Unless I would be asked to make a presentation, for example, to someone who's retiring or some kind of a thing of that sort. And in some cases, you know, and probably if that happens, that invitation would go to all council, but that's staff determine that. And it's not, there's no protocol. Similarly, there are events that happen where a councilor is asked to attend some sort of a formality that's going on. You know, it could be something that the Legion is organizing, or it could be the event in the fall that recognizes fallen firefighters, or it could be that kind of thing. Those invitations come to normally come to me from the organization that is hosting the meeting, and if I'm available to go, I will go, and if I'm not available to go, I will ask the deputy mayor or try to find a councilor who is available to go. So, I mean, if you're asking what's the protocol, I guess that's the protocol. There are also other things that involve that do involve external agencies, such as, you know, the other levels of government and various other things like that. If there's an announcement that's being made or something of that sort, where one of our federal or provincial politicians is coming or whatever, that is normally again, the mayor or the deputy mayor are the people who would normally be asked to attend that, and if we couldn't for some reason or other, then again we would look around and try to find somebody else. So I think, to be honest, it's pretty simple protocol, and I think the number of occasions where, you know, the mayor or a councilor is asked to do things is relatively small, you know, or expected to be present is relatively small. I mean, so I guess I'm not really sure what I don't personally see the value of having a protocol. I think there may be a misunderstanding of how much is related to how much of this actually goes on, or what the need for it is. But anyway, that's my reaction to the, as I say, to the first part. The second part, I think we can do, and I don't see any problem if we do have a system that, you know, an electronic calendar, that I don't see anything wrong with putting these things in, because in many cases, I don't suppose it's a question that only one person can go. Okay. I guess, but and you know, I mean, there will be things. For example, I dare say, a fair number of the councilors attended, you know, the Hunter's Supper in Ardbeg. they weren't there all at the same time, I don't think, but that kind of thing doesn't constitute a council meeting. So there is not, I mean, I don't, I mean, I don't think, I mean, I guess I don't really, I'm having trouble identifying what the problem is that we're trying to solve. I guess that's all I'm trying to say. Anyway, what do you want to do? We've heard our CIO make a commitment to look into the calendar. What's the next step of this?
I'm gonna, Janice, did you have something, or Councillor Bray, that you wanted to say first?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that in my many years at the DSAB, when we had elected officials, I would agree with you in that I would have meetings with contractors. I would have meetings with my ministry reps and things like that. And our board members never expected to be there or to, they would just expect that I was doing my job the way I was supposed to do it. And anything that would be reported to them would be coming through board meetings and board reports and things like that. So I think that the electronic calendar is really to me is the big thing. I don't know that protocols on meetings. I think that if there are meetings that that councillors can attend, I'm sure that will be broadcasted, by email or something. Am I right? Or if there were, like if there was an event that was that you wanted more board or more councillors to be there, you would let us know. So I'm fine with that. In that, I don't think we need to get too difficult. I think maybe the electronic calendar is a good way to start. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to finish off. So I think there was a little misunderstanding when I talked about meetings. I was only talking about meetings where there would be involvement with staff or staff and agency meetings or staff and consultant meetings. And the reason I was bringing it up, I'm going to use an example, was simply because about a month ago or so, there was a meeting that included North Bay Mattawal, say, and some others. And there was a member of council that was going to attend it. And I asked if I could also attend, and I was told that I couldn't attend. And I brought it up and didn't think it was possibly fair that one member of council could attend and not another. And I didn't think any of us should attend. Now, the meeting turned out just fine and no members of council attended the meeting. But at the beginning of it, there was confirmation, I'll say, that a member of council was going to attend that meeting, which was, I think, as everybody's talking about here now, we as council shouldn't be attending those such meetings, and we should let staff and our consultants or staff meet with other agencies without us needing to be present or trying to insert ourselves to be present. So I was trying to actually come up with something to say, I don't want what almost happened a month ago to ever happen. And that's why I was kind of saying it, to simply say, I don't want there to be another situation like that. So if we come up with a protocol and just say, council won't attend meetings like that, I think it's done with. But if we're all talking, from what I hear from everybody speaking tonight, we're all saying, we all know that we shouldn't be attending those types of meetings. And I think the integrity commissioner or our code of conduct would remind us that we shouldn't be attending those types of meetings, nor should be invited to those types of meetings. And it was only in a situation if we thought it was a very big political topic that it might be a planning item, and we might say, hey, we're going to be meeting with a planning applicant, with a planner, their planner, whoever it might be, and staff might say, we'd like to have somebody from council attend that meeting. And it was for an example like that, that we might say, at that time, let's delegate somebody from council to go, who should be going? Should it be the mayor? Should it be a councillor? It was only for a situation like that. But I think, again, if we've all spoken about this and all understand that we shouldn't be attending or commenting on items like that, and we should let staff do their jobs, I think it answers itself.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
yeah.
Through you, if I could just respond, I'm not in disagreement with what Councillor Nash is saying, but there are circumstances where the CAO may be meeting with someone, and she may want a member of council, be it the mayor, the deputy mayor, someone else, to be there for their exceptional type situations. So there has to be flexibility that happens, or quite frankly, if it was a planning item, and I think probably in the past, there have been planning items where the applicant has asked for the mayor, for instance, to be in a meeting, right? And if that occurs, then I think that I don't think we should have to get together and have a vote as to who's going to attend. It's just normal business. And so I don't know whether that helps, but I don't think I can insert myself into a staff meeting or any other meeting, nor would I ever do that. So again, I'm sort of sitting on the fence here. But there are exceptions. There are, if someone asks me to go to a meeting, I'm not going to come back to council and ask permission, right? I'm going to go. So and whether I put it on the calendar, I don't mind putting it on a calendar if that's the case. But anyway, thank you. I guess we're taking up too much time.
Yeah,
you're going to give me a new job pretty soon.
Well,
in an hour.
Hopefully we will. So if there is nothing further, can we agree to receive this and discuss it? Anything further? All right, thank you. And hopefully we'll hear back in due course about the calendar. So now we are into a couple of appointments, again, council appointments. 11.5 is seeking a representative for the nursing station committee. That is the local committee it's an advisory committee for the nurse practitioner led clinic, and in the past, Councillor McEwen was our representative.
And I was before him. And I was.
And you were before him. Okay. So I guess what we're looking for is a name. You can see there's a motion here that we appoint someone to be the representative on that committee. Is there someone who would like to do this? Councillor Woods is volunteering.
I'll second that.
Is there any other? Is we gonna have an election? No. All right. Hereby appoint Councillor Woods. As council representative. So you are moving that, Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Is there a seconder? All right, Councillor Bray. Any further discussion? Is everyone in agreement? All right. Next one, 11.6. It's actually the Wawashkish Landings Task Force, but Councillor Gorham Matthews was the other councillor. You can see the terms in the terms of reference. There were two councillors. I was appointed, I'm the other one, I was appointed as the chair. And the task forces, unlike committees, they simply carry on. They don't automatically turn over, but Councillor Gorham Matthews, and she could actually have continued, I guess, if she'd wanted to, but she didn't, but she's not a councillor and she didn't wish to. So there is an opportunity for, again, for someone who would like to be part of that group to join it. I'll tell you just sorry, we keep getting little messages that say our recording has stopped for some reason, and it gets restarted now. So just so you know, this task force meets in the evenings via Zoom normally, because it has representatives of the Cottagers Association, and it has Ed Bennett Jr. as a member of it. So it meets in the evenings normally for a couple of hours about every 2 months or so. It's not like a monthly meeting or anything like that. It's a task force that is working on finalizing a report to you, which will come to council in February, and most of its work hopefully at that point in time will be done. But in any case, if there is someone who would like to participate, we can we'll if there is no one, then I guess we'll carry on with the people we have. By the way, there has been some turnover in the representatives from the Cottagers Association as well, and so that will come back. That'll come for discussion, I guess, on Thursday. Am I right? There are some people who have succeeded the original people. One of them actually passed away, and so there was someone nominated to replace that person. But we've never formalized that, so we will probably try to do that on Thursday. But, or, in any case, is there anyone who would like to do this?
I'd have no problem volunteering for that if council would have me as another representative for it.
Okay. Anybody else? No? All right, I will put down Councillor Nash.
For you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Now I see this task force. I see the end of it coming,
Yeah.
as you say, because I don't think this is a 4-year term, and I'm glad you said, there'd be a report coming in February, and I think that's important because I think there has to be a debate of council as to what I'm not exactly sure what we committed to last year. I know we got a report. I know we talked about, well, we'll take over the permitting and the enforcement and all that kind of stuff. I don't know whether that was all formalized in a motion. It was. Okay. I wonder if we get a copy of that motion, please. Not now, but is it? It's when?
Thank you. If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it's in the unfinished business. If you look in that list, all of those motions are there.
Committed to that, to go down that route of paid parking and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, we actually did. I mean, there are details of the things that are still, like how much people get charged and so on, that still have to be finalized and that sort of thing. But
I think we need a debate on that subject. I don't want to preempt any discussion, but I think this council needs to discuss parking there and in general in the municipality. So I'm glad it's coming in February, and I'd encourage for it to come early in February if we can. I guess to be the first meeting, I assume, but because I think we have to discuss what we're going to do. Thank you. That's all I'll say. But if Councillor Nash wants to get in for a meeting, for one meeting of Because I think that's all it needs. Fixes the meeting or two and it does.
Yeah, there probably will be maybe one more before we,
Okay.
before this
thank you.
is. But, okay, so, is someone going to move this motion that he be appointed? Or are you suggesting it isn't necessary to do it?
No,
All right, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, but if there's only one more meeting until. you
Well,
present
until this
something,
report comes to council.
Yeah. Depending where it goes.
But
from there, it
I,
doesn't-
you know, I mean, the task force will still exist for some period of time after that because there's, you know. So,
And I'm just looking back here, it says April 19th. On page 5 of 8, it talks about the resolutions or the motions, but if there was an actual motion passed, it'd be great if I could get a copy of that just for reference. If possible.
well, the whole thing, I mean, the whole thing will be summarized in the report. So you see how we got where we are, but,
Well, both the last term, it says 2022. We should correct that. It should be 2023, right? Even for Brian's appointment. And this one says 2022 to 2026. It should be 2023, but I don't think it should be a 4-year appointment, should it? Is it just 2023?
well, yeah, it's really for, I don't know. I guess. If you take the terms of reference strictly, they were council representatives, so if you're not on council, then you're not. Then if you're no longer on council, then you wouldn't. I guess I would determine, but do I, you know. Again, task force are people who are appointed hold office until the task force is stood down. Basically, that's the way a task force works. Typically, it's an ad hoc committee. It's not, so it might only be 2 years, or it might be, in this case, this one is bridged over more than one term of council. So I don't know. Do you want to take the dates out of the motion? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it should be, again, I don't really care, but I think it should be wrapped up in 2023. So I'm just saying it should be for this year. I don't see the task force going into 2024 and 2025 and but I don't know, you're on.
National Council
You know,
representing the Washcash Parking Task Force. Well, you just take the dates off it then if you
Okay,
want. Doesn't
Okay,
matter.
that's fine.
Just take it off.
And
Okay, is there?
sorry, I was gonna ask a question, but I don't know if it's now or maybe I can ask it in questions from the public. I was just looking back at the unfinished business, and it speaks to April 19th with a lot of motions here. And I just have a copy of the May 3rd meeting minutes, and it says that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone does hereby receive the report of the Wawashkash Landings Task Force dated April 19th, 2021 regarding paid and enforced parking for information and consider its recommendations. I don't see where we say we passed anything on the recommendations.
That was just the first of a bunch of motions that were passed.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of them. There were like
Oh.
5 or 6.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so if I can get
If
a
you could
copy,
get
that would
those out
help.
to everybody.
Yeah. Well, you'll get, if this motion passes right now, you'll get all the backgrounds. Is there a seconder for this appointment? All right. This is Councillor Bray, sorry. All right, are we in favor of the appointment?
Yep.
We need to move on because we've got a couple more to do here. Okay, the next item on the list is 11.7, which is about Belvedere Board of Management. And to recap the situation here, there is only currently one. There is one person whose name was put into the running, and that is Councillor Debbie Zulak from the municipality of McKellar. And we can propose another name, or we can support Councillor Zulak, I guess. The issue is, I suppose in fairness to the Belvedere board, we should tell them something. Is there anyone in this group who else who wishes? I think I mentioned to you the time before. This is sort of. It is probably our turn to do this if you sort of follow the length of time. Keep in mind, this is a representative for 3 municipalities: McMurrich, Monteith, who hasn't held it in a long time and doesn't have anybody that have spoken to their new mayor, and they don't have anybody that they want to put forward. The other one is McKellar, and McKellar has put a name forward, so their council has supported Councillor Zulak. So
through you, Mr. Mayor, maybe I'm not recalling correct, but I thought at the last council meeting, when we were speaking of this, I thought we'd talked about Debbie Zulak. Maybe there's just discussion going around, but I thought we'd spoken to that there was no representative from Whitestone, and we'd support Council Zulak. Maybe her name just came up though. Maybe I'm just missing.
no, her name came up in information, but there was we took no action to support anybody. So if someone wants to make a motion that we support her, then that's a way to
I'd make that motion if her name is still forward from before.
Well, I think it is. Yeah. Is there anybody else who is interested in doing this? Okay, if not, then I will Councillor Nash nominated, so it would be McKellar. Is there a seconder for that motion?
Also.
Right, that's Councillor Lamb. Okay. Any further discussion? Right, are we in favor then? Okay. 11.8 is the District of Parry Sound Municipal Association, and it's the executive of the District of Parry Sound Municipal Association. Just so everybody's clear about this, when the District of Parry Sound Municipal Association has meetings, all of the councilors are invited to go if they wish. It's a 1 day or most of a day event with a luncheon in the middle of it. Usually at some. In fact, I think we all volunteered to host the last one before we got shut down by COVID-19, the last face-to-face one, but there hasn't been one for a while. So, but the executive is the group that organizes the meetings, invites the guest speakers to come and speak at it, and determines the agenda for the meeting and that sort of thing. So, now.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Once again, who was it? Was this again Debbie Zulak? I think,
Yeah, Debbie Zulak has put her name forward, and I checked with the other joint municipalities, and they don't have anyone that has an interest in this position at this time. So the candidate appears to be Debbie Zulak, unless there's someone within our council that has an interest.
There are other municipalities like McKellar, and how many? There's probably 4, I think, in our group. Am I right? That's correct. It's the Township of Carling, Municipality of McDougall, Township of McKellar, and Whitestone.
And as I said, the only municipality so far that has put a candidate forward is McKellar, and that candidate is Debbie Zulak.
I'd move Debbie Zulak.
All right, Councillor Lamb moves. I'm gonna say McKellar, Councillor. Is there a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Bray. Any further discussion? Are we all agreed then? Okay. 11.9. District of Parry Sound Social Services Administration Board. You will recall that at the previous meeting, at the previous meeting that we indicated our support for Councillor Bray. But there are actually two people, and there are two positions available from the four municipalities. The four municipalities are again McKellar, Whitestone, McDougall, and Carling. So the people who have been nominated, McKellar or McDougall has supported Councillor Joel Constable, who has been on that board before. McKellar has put forward Councillor Morley Hascom, and Carling has put together Councillor Bruce Kelly. All right. In conversation with the Mayor of McDougall, it's my understanding that they are prepared to support our nominee if we support their nominee. So I'm going to suggest that we put forward the name of Councillor Joel Constable. And that's just based solely on the knowledge of the individuals involved, really, in terms of who we think. So that would mean that the two reps for the four municipalities would be Councillor Bray and Councillor Constable. So
what happens if the other two say someone different? You got a tie.
Well, then what happens usually is the four heads of council get together and they hash it out, right? But
I can't think of any more perfect candidate than Councillor Bray.
I'm still a little lost, so we're gonna recommend Jade Constable. Joel Constable.
Yeah, it's Joel Constable.
And in turn, they're gonna recommend Janice Bray, Councillor Bray.
That's well, they will already, they have already put forward Joel Constable's name, but each municipality has to agree to two names, right? So
we've already put forward one name.
we've already put forward
All right,
one.
that's where I wanted to make sure we'd already put forward the one.
And so, but until the plural DSAB doesn't have a board until this gets sorted out. So that's why we're
Right,
doing this.
all right. I just wanted to make sure that Councillor Bray's name was still forwarded somewhere. That's from us, that's all.
And so Councillor Woods is moving, it'll be McDougall, Councillor Constable, right? So is there a seconder for that? All right. Councillor Nash, McDougall. So all right, are we all in favor of that?
Yep.
Okay. Now, 11:10 is a motion to appoint our chief building official as a non-voting member to the Committee of Adjustment. Could I get a mover and seconder for that, please? I see Councillor Woods, sorry. Seconded by Councillor Lamb. Any discussion on that one? They were all in favor. Looks like we're progressing famously here. 1111 is an appointment, similar appointment, but of our Fire Chief Bob Whitman to the 911 Management Committee as a municipal representative. That's our representative for this term of council. Can I get a mover and seconder for that one, please? Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Woods. Any discussion? Are we all in favor? All right, thank you. Now we have left over from our last meeting, we have a couple of letters of support. 11.12 was one in support of a Township of Archipelago resolution regarding Bill 5, which is entitled Stop the Harassment and Abuse of Local Leaders Act 2022. And I'll just read it to you quickly. Whereas Council from the Municipality of Whitestone received a resolution from the Township of the Archipelago to support Bill 5, Stop the Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that Council hereby supports Bill 5, Stop the Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act 2022, which will require the Code of Conduct for municipal councillors and members of local boards to include a requirement for those councillors and members to comply with workplace violence and harassment policies. And further be it resolved that copies of this resolution be sent to local MPPs, Premier Doug Ford, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and West Prairie Sound municipalities. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Bray moves. Is there a seconder? Councillor Nash. Any discussion? Councillor Bray.
Yes, I think I was the one that brought this forward at the last meeting, that I was hoping that we as a council could support this. I think it's important as leaders that we show that we can be accountable under the same legislation as our staff, and that we support that for sure. I know that at the DSAB when I was there, our board supported that, and they had all signed on to that and had done all of the training for workplace violence and harassment. And I think that it was just something that was really a very supportive thing for staff to know that everybody in the whole organization was on the same page. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Other comments on this one? All right, can I ask if we're all in favor then, please? Okay, thank you. That's carried. And 11.12.2, which is the last one on the list, is another Township of Archipelago resolution. I'll read it to you. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has received a request for support of a resolution enacted by the town of Parry Sound with regards to the Parry Sound Mega School. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council for the Municipality of Whitestone supports the resolution by the town of Parry Sound and hereby calls for the reconsideration of the building plans and budget for the proposed junior kindergarten to grade 12 mega school to ensure that the school will adequately accommodate current and projected population growth as illustrated by the 2021 census population and dwelling counts. And further be it resolved that copies of this resolution of support be sent to the Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Steve Clark, Premier Doug Ford, MPP Graydon Smith, heads of council of the West Parry Sound municipalities and the Near North District School Board Chair. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Nash moves. Is there a seconder? I'll take Councillor Bray. Any discussion on that one?
Through you, Mr.
Go
Mayor.
ahead.
I think I had brought this one forward as well at the last meeting, and I think that we've all read in the paper and we've seen that population has gone up in our areas throughout the West Parry Sound, and where this school would be, the children would be going to this school. They need to be looking at it again to make sure that it's going to meet the needs, and not just the needs today, but the needs of the future. If we're going to have our economies growing, and hopefully that means that we will have our populations growing somewhat, and certainly what we do need is to be able to have schools that are able to accommodate families and children in the area. So I think it's important that they relook at this just to make sure that it does meet the needs, because I don't think it does. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Any other comments? Are you ready for the question then? Are we in favor? All right, thank you. So that takes us to correspondence, which is on page 8 of the agenda. I'm gonna have to go back through here to find it, but we are. So can I get a mover and seconder that we review the correspondence items listed on page 8? Sorry, and receive the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion and action, and we'll populate the list in a second, but can I get a mover and seconder just for that? Okay, I'll take Councillor Woods and Councillor Bray. Now, are there ones here that you want to discuss? Councillor Mann?
Yeah, I'd like to take out A and B. One is from, I think, Mr. Can, and the other one's from Mr. Cole. Do I have the right numbers?
Yep.
Yeah, I understand that you do. I guess
I'll be very, very brief.
Okay, well, all right, I'll put them down. Okay, A and B both having to do with, okay, this is Ed Can, Marie Belvedere, and this is, well, this was the memo from the acting chair. Okay, are there other ones that you want to pull? I'm sorry? Oh, all right. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Water.
Acting chair. All right. Is there anything else? Those the ones?
I've got to get you out of here.
All right. Yeah. Those are we all in favor that then those are the only two we're discussing? All right, thank you. I just before we go, I will let you make a comment, Councillor Lamb, but I just want to raise a concern with you. This is about life lease. I'm assuming at least the item A is strictly about life lease, and that's the property of the municipality, and probably not something that we should discuss too much in open session. So
the property of the, what did you
It's
say?
the property of the this municipality and the other 7 that own, that are the
Yeah.
owners of Belvedere. So it just, I mean, there is a limit, and I can tell you that
you're
the
gonna
Belvedere
talk-
board took the position that um, that they, you know, when we had discussion about giving reports to council, they said, well, you know, we can talk about the general background of things and what's going on. But if you want to get into the details of life lease, if a council wanted to get into it, then it would have to be in camera. That was their
Oh,
position,
well,
just
that's fine.
but go ahead.
My only comments are that something's going on here and I don't understand exactly what it is, but my sense tells me where there's smoke, there's fire. So Mr. Can has written, Mr. Coles has written. I would request that as soon as the new board is constituted, that the chair of that board and our representative, if it's Councillor Zulak from McKellar, come to us, whether it's in open or closed or whatever, and talk about the life leases. I think we have the right as the owner to request that, and that's what I would ask we do. And we'll get to the bottom of it, because I have some questions with respect to the life leases. I also have some questions with respect to the property itself and what happens at the end of all this. So that's all I want to say is I request a meeting. I don't want to get into the details of it. I was given 36 pages of notes 2 hours ago from someone that had to pay $5 to get it from the library. But anyway, I've got lots of people sending me lots of stuff on this, and I don't intend to you know, discuss it, you know, publicly here tonight. I just request a meeting. And I'll leave that up to the clerk as to whether that should be an open or closed or whatever. But something's going on here, and it doesn't smell right to me. But maybe I'm completely off base. Thank you.
All right.
And I just had one quick comment to do with, are we talking about A or B right now?
Well, both.
I just found it when I was reading the item B, the Belvedere Heights letter. I found it interesting that they say that they in the existing lease agreements, it was silent to the issue of termination or sale of the building and the rights of residents. And I found it interesting that they said that they engaged a legal support to create an addendum and then had the residents review that back in the summer of 2021. I just found that very interesting that the termination or sale of building was never thought of when these leases were entered into, whenever they were, and that it was only in the last 18 months that it was presented to owners to look at and possibly sign an addendum. I found that very interesting.
Well, that statement on the part of the acting chair is factual. I can assure you. I have all the documents, and that's he's not saying anything. Anyway, this is getting into the kind of discussion that I think Councillor Lamb wants to have, and I suggest to you probably that what you will probably hear from the Belvedere board is that they will ask they will say, if you want to get into this discussion, we'll do it, but we'll do it in camera. You know, just so that it isn't. Anyway. Okay. So matters arising from correspondence. We've dealt with them. Are there any councillor items, first of all? Okay, Councillor Woods, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. First one, I was contacted by a few residents out in Maple Island, on Bestwick Crescent. They were asking me about street signs and a stop sign, and if there was a chance that they could get a stop sign and a street sign, like an actual name sign, I guess, for Bestwick Crescent. I guess they've
Oh,
done
yeah.
some work. Opened up, they've done work. We're just asking about a street sign, if they could get a street sign out that way. If staff could look into it, give me an answer back or let them know. Another one. Questionable access into the office for council members. Say on like a weekend, if I or any one of us had to meet with somebody. Unless it was like a pre-scheduled thing, could we not get in to use a meeting room or to meet with somebody? Is there no access into the office that way, or is it just in the front vestibule?
Sorry, thought it was turned on. Right now, your key just gets you into the foyer. If you wanted to use a meeting room, I think there's some options at the library, but if you had a meeting scheduled, we could arrange for you to get into that meeting room at some point.
Okay, so we could make, I said can I get in there to meet with whoever on 2 weeks from today kind of idea?
Yeah,
That's an option.
Yeah, well, we haven't got everything sorted out in terms of keys. Your key right now will just get you into the one door. If you go into the other door, it requires a code. Why don't you let us know if that occurs, and we'll see if we can help you out.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Were there other questions, Councillor Lamb?
Just a follow up to that, and again, maybe not tonight, but maybe we have to have a discussion on, I see no reason, we used to have a code to get into the office. We always, for years and years, would have a code. I also think, for instance, the 35 pages today, like if I have to, or any counselor for council business, say you needed to use a copier on a Saturday to copy something, I see nothing wrong with having a code to go in and having a code on the copy machine and copying it and using it. I mean, we are council, and I think we should have access to the office. Like I don't see that as, I'm a trustful person, and I think everyone on council is trustful. And going in to root through people's desks or whatever, I just think that we should have a code to get into. I feel like I don't have access to the office. I have to wait outside sort of till I get granted permission to go in, or I go to the front thing and I got a shield and I don't feel like it's a welcoming situation. So I think we need to discuss that. And I don't feel comfortable with it the way it is. And I'd like to discuss maybe it in another meeting. I don't know. Maybe I'm all wet, but I don't, that's how I feel.
If I may, Mr.
You won't mind?
All right, you want mine?
Just good. Okay, there it goes.
Thank you. The new security protocols were put in place, of course, when we did the renovation, and it was intended for the easy access that public had in the past. And we had some very unfortunate situations where someone would come in the front door and then just walk through the office. And we had some challenges with some mental health issues and people showing up at the back at the CBO's office, and folks didn't know they were there. So it's not unusual that those kind of protocols are in place where the public, if we do have them come in the office, and we do, nobody stops them. They're invited in, and it creates safety for staff.
Well, I'll tell you, I may have a lot of things, but no one's accused me of having mental health issues. So I think I should be able to get into the office.
Maybe we can bring it back to another meeting. I'd have no problem with the council being able to enter, I'm sure. I think if we're all trustworthy, I'm sure there's cameras in the office anyways.
No, there aren't.
Maybe there should be.
But I think it would benefit if we wanted to photocopy something for council, or be it meeting minutes or something. Maybe there can be a code on the photocopier or something like that. Or if we want to meet with somebody on, I think Councillor Woods, he'd said if it was a Saturday, that, you know, we could enter the office and meet somebody. I'm sure it doesn't happen often, but meet in the little meeting room. So maybe we could talk about it on another date, because I know,
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, you have
yeah,
to get
we're-
going.
If you don't mind, thank you. So is there anything else under councilor items? Are we?
I had a couple questions, but I had a couple last time and I know we ran out of time. So I'm just gonna ask two easy ones tonight. And then I'll try to remember the others for the next time. One of them was, one of my comments was simply in regards to, I know it's brought up quite a bit, but the sign on the bunny trail again, when you're going north, it's completely blank. When you're going south, it says, you know, council, I think it's talks about a council meeting in November, early December. I know there's some snow around it, but it used to always be updated. I know before I got on council, I'd hear it raised quite a bit. So I don't know if maybe we can speak to staff and just make sure that that sign does get updated. So we don't have one side that's blank and the other side that's outdated, that they're both updated from now until the spring. Maybe we have to go in one time, clear the snow before there's much of it, post stuff, and then it just make sure it's updated. And just one other thing, which I've brought up in the past, and I'll leave my other comments for another meeting, but I noticed under correspondence again, and I really do think we have to be cognizant of, we just spoke about mental health and somebody was in the office possibly, you know, or showed up the CBO's office. And when I look at correspondence, nothing jumps out here. However, I notice under, you know, a couple of the items, I can get somebody's email address. I can get a phone number for somebody. That's on page 91. So I can get the personal email of somebody, the personal cell phone of somebody. And if I look at page 96, I can do the same. I can get the 3 people's email addresses. And I just think we have to be really cognizant of that. And there are a lot of people that harm people these days. And I think we have to be careful to make sure that names and or at least email addresses are being put in correspondence or cell phone numbers. And I just, you know, it might be something that we come back and again, maybe it's something that we come up with a policy for or something, but just make sure staff is redacting all that private information. Certainly if there's a first or last name, that their email addresses aren't included in cell numbers going forward. I think that's a fair statement. I'd ask if staff could just look into that, maybe get back to us. And then I'll save my other questions for another council meeting so we can be done.
Okay, thank you. If there's nothing else in this, I see there are still 4 members of the public on the Zoom call. Are there any questions from the public? Okay, hearing none, I will ask for mover and seconder for the confirmatory bylaw, please. Okay, I've got Councillor Woods again, seconded by Councillor Bray. All in favor? Thank you. And adjournment. Okay, this time we'll get Councillor Nash and Councillor Lamb. We are adjourned at, looks like about, see what this guy says, 6:23 p.m. And our next regular meeting is the 24th. Am I correct?
Yeah.
All right then. Well, and we have workshop on the 21st. Anyway, thank you very much for your indulgence in getting this done, and enjoy the rest of your day.